Okay, so today I'm going to talk about flags, and more specifically, I'm going to talk about flag colors and flag symbols. And by this I mean both the actual colors used on the flags as well as the ways these colors are arranged. Because colors on flags have a certain meaning attached to them, and this meaning has been established through many centuries of using these colors and many centuries of tradition. And the colors and what they mean have developed from heraldry in feudal Europe. So often when you see a flag, the colors that have been chosen for a specific reason, and they're meant to symbolize certain aspects and certain traits. Furthermore, the way the colors are arranged also have a meaning and can show, for example, historical ties or ethnic or cultural ties. So the way a flag is arranged, the colors chosen, and the way those colors are arranged actually impart a lot of meaning. So if you see, Russia's flag, which is a simple tricolor, right? It's red, white, and blue. Not necessarily in that order, but it's red, white, and blue in a tricolor. And the fact that there are three colors, they are those three specific colors, and the fact that it's a tricolor in that order, it actually tells you a lot about the country. And this is something many people don't realize, especially people who are interested in vexillology or like making alternative flag designs or making flag designs as a hobby. Is you can't just throw in a bunch of colors for a make-believe nation either on Earth or somewhere else if you're making like a fantasy map or something, because there has to be a reason for these colors to be as they are. You can't just let's say you're making a pretend nation in Africa, you probably want to choose a flag that's red, yellow, and green for reasons we're going to get into. And if you're making a fantasy nation, you have to think about where is this nation on my map, what are they near, and what colors would they use because of that, and what is their history, what colors is it reasonable for them to have picked. If it was one major nation that got broken up, then probably all these nations will share the colors of their parent nation, but perhaps differently arranged. And as I said, the colors used that I will be discussing will be the real life versions of them, and that the meanings will be what they are here on Earth today. And again, these are taken from the heraldry in feudal Europe, and then that got adopted to use on modern flags during the Renaissance. So there are 6 primary colors used for flags. The first of these is black, and black is used to show determination in defeating one's enemies and generally being steadfast. So it means overcoming something often. Next we have red, which is the color of blood, obviously, and it's probably the most well-known color in flag design when it comes to the symbolism of it. Most people know what red means, but just to be complete in this video, red stands for courage, battle, war, conflict in general, revolution, and valor. And that is one of the primary reasons it's used for communism, because of the revolution aspect. Next we have blue. Blue represents freedom, justice, and in modern times it's also been used for patriotism. And by modern times I mean 18th century forward, late 18th century forward. Next we have white, and white of course is the famous white flag that shows capitulation, but when white is used in another context, it's often a symbol for peace, calm, purity, and innocence. Next we have yellow, and yellow is comes from gold, and it's used to represent wealth. Another way, another interpretation is it shows prosperity, and that comes from wheat with like large harvests. And lastly we have green, and green is most often used for either fertility or agriculture. The green of the land, something like that. It's also used to represent the Muslim faith. Of course, these colors can be used in different ways, and they are used in different ways, but it's way more common that they're used in these traditional ways. One example of a non-traditional way the colors are used, for example, blue can be used to represent the sea, but these meanings that I've listed are the most common ones. In extension to these colors, these basic colors, there's also something called pan colors, meaning all pan colors. Examples of this are the pan-Arabic colors, the pan-Slavic colors, and the pan-African colors. There's a bunch more, but these combinations, the pan-American as well. But these are the most common ones. And it's often 2 to 4 colors, most often 3, used together, and they're used by nations to show that they share an ethnic or cultural heritage. So, for example, the Slavic nations will use the same colors to show they share an ethnic heritage. The African nations will use the same colors to show the same thing, etc. So the Pan-Slavic colors are red, white, and blue. These are also the American ones, and these are some examples of Pan-Slavic colors used on Slavic nations' flags. So when nations create their flags, they look to their neighbors and often copy what they do, just to show that they share heritage and that they're part of the same ethnic group or the same people. This is not the only way nations show that they share a heritage like this. There are other ways, but we're going to get to that a little bit later. There are also the Pan-African colors, which are red, yellow, and green, as we can see on the flags here. And lastly, there are the Pan-Arabic, well, lastly, and the ones I'm going to take, that I'm going to bring up, are the Pan-Arabic colors. These are red, white, black, and green. And as you can see, the green here is used for the Muslim faith. So the pan colors are the reason that flags from a region look similar. So if you ever see a flag and you think to yourself, oh, that looks like an African flag, or that looks like an Arab flag, that's because most of the time they're using the pan colors of that region. Which is why, you know, when you see, if you look at the news, you see a flag, you're like, oh, that looks like that belongs to that region. And most of the time you're going to be right, because the ones who created the flag, you know, actually, you know, they spent a lot of time doing it, obviously. So another way that flag colors are used to show history are often the way that colonies adopted the flags of their masters even when they break free. The most famous example being the United States of America choosing red, white, and blue in both as a homage to the Union Jack of Great Britain, but also as a sort of homage to France and the French Revolution with their red, white, and blue. And also because the colors red, white, and blue, white for peace, blue for justice and patriotism and equality, and red for revolution and battle and valor, really fit their nation well. So the colors are also used to do an homage back to history, and that's important to remember. There's also, as I mentioned, another reason that flags can look similar. And this concept doesn't really have a proper name that I've heard of when I read about this, but it's basically the pan-color idea applied to the shape or arrangement of colors on a flag. And I think it's going to be a bit more clear if I bring up an example. And the by far most common example of this is the tricolor. Now, the tricolor is in fact so common that most people don't even think about it being a specific arrangement. But if you look back at flag history, the tricolor doesn't really show up at all. There are a few, very few, like one or two nations that use it, and they don't use it in the way we see it today. And then the French Revolution happens, and they adopt a tricolor, and they choose red, white, and blue for the revolution, the justice, and the equality that will come from the revolution, the blue, and then of course the white for peace and calm and something like that after the revolution. And the pan colors are also used in specific arrangements. So again, the tricolors mentioned here are then adopted by other nations. So there's a bunch of examples. I'll put a bunch of them up on the screen, but for example, Belgium is one of them, the Netherlands is one of them, and a lot of nations use these tricolors to represent democracy and freedom. So often you see monarchies or some dictatorship, they go through a revolution, at least in history it's been the case that when they go through a revolution, they then adopt this tricolor flag just like France did to show their belonging to the democratic and free world. And it's so common, we don't even think about it being a specific arrangement, but it is. And finally, the last way for people to show heritage and show a sort of ethnic heritage or an ethnic unity, as well as showing history, is the use of actual literal symbols. For example, the hammer and sickle is used for communism, the moon and the star is used for Islam, and countries in the same region often adopt each other's symbols. For example, these American flags that I'm going to put up on the screen, they only use the star in one way or another. The American flag with its collection of stars in the top left corner is of course the most famous one, but as you can see, all these other flags also use stars, which is another way for them above the colors to show they're all part of the same region. And the star is also a very popular communist symbol, so it's used for China, and it was used for the Soviet Union, as well as Vietnam. And other well-known symbols that show ethnic heritage or a shared history, for example, and probably the most well-known one is the Scandinavian cross, and it's used by all but one, of course, Greenland, all the Scandinavian countries, and that also shows their unity and their shared history. So when looking at flags, it's a very simple design, and more flag design things like why they're supposed to be very simple is a topic better suited for another video. And I also suspect that the things I've said in this video can be developed upon. But when you look at a flag, there's a lot of information given to you in three colors, in three like squares, or in a triangle and two squares or whatever, is actually a lot of information. And really, all of these different arrangements deserve a video on their own, but this has been kind of like an overview of the different ways, and the overview of the mentality of people who design flags, and people and the flags of the world. So it kind of shows you that when you see a flag, you could think a little bit more about why have the colors been chosen, what region is this, and it makes it interesting to see when someone isn't following the rules, so to speak, because there's often a very good reason they haven't been doing that. And of course, this also only applies to modern flags. If you go back in time and you look at flags from the 15th century and this 14th to like 16th century, you're gonna have things that don't really fit because the rules used there are different than from today. This is a post-French Revolution world, I think is the best way to describe it. But yeah, so that's an overview of the colors of the flags and the symbolism of flags, as well as the pan colors and the arrangements and stuff like that. And I hope it's been useful to at least someone out there. If people like this, if someone finds this useful, I might make more videos about flag design and the history of flags and so on. But yeah, thanks for watching.